Okay, so this is going to be a super long, rambly video that I've wanted to make for quite a while now. I'm going to leave timestamps and chapters below in the description to help you navigate through this mess of a video. Like all things in life, this self-development journey I'm on has taught me many things in my 36 years on this earth. And I've always wanted to just give some algorithm-free advice to the younger generation who could be facing some of the similar obstacles in their life that I've overcome. I'm going to start this part off by explaining my reasoning and this idea of algorithm-free advice. Lately, I've been noticing that whenever I create a video, I'm always trying to create content that the YouTube algorithm would pick up, or content that will rank and do well in Google SEO. Part of me understands that content creation needs to be focused on a very narrow niche and searchable keywords, because if you don't, then it's going to be very difficult for people to find your videos. However, this ends up being a double-edged sword whenever you are curating your content for some kind of algorithm, rather than creating for the love of creating. This is the paradoxical catch-22 I find myself currently in. I love content creation for the freedom it brings, and I get to create things that I love and put ideas out into the world that I resonate with. But at the same time, these social media algorithms are the puppet masters behind the scenes, and I'm just dangling from their strings, hoping that one day they'll recommend my work. And that is what defeats the purpose of being a content creator. It feels like I'm no longer free to create what I love, and in some ways or another, I find myself working for the algorithms. So this video is going to cover a wide range of subjects, and it's not going to have any keywords, descriptions, or any of that Google SEO stuff. I'm going to leave all that blank the best I can, and I have zero expectations for the growth of this video. This way, you'll know 100% that all of these life experiences that I'm going to talk about are meaningful to me and come from my heart. This idea of living for your work rather than working for a living has always stuck with me. And I was fortunate enough growing up to have parents that kind of guided me to find things that I loved, and they provided me with enough opportunities to go out and actually experiment. I believe this is extremely important for younger people, to put yourself out there and try different things, because you never know when you'll find that skill or hobby that will become your passion. Now, take myself for example. I had so many opportunities to take a photography class in high school or a videography class in college, but at the time I had no interest in cameras at all. And it wasn't until my mid-30s that I first purchased a mirrorless camera and became completely obsessed with filmmaking. Now, I know it can be extremely difficult trying to figure out what your passion in life is, and it can become an overwhelming existential crisis, but the best advice that I have for people is that life is too short to be afraid of the what-ifs. We have such a small, finite amount of time on this earth that you should spend it on the things that truly matter to you. When I stop and think about all this stuff, my biggest regret would be never trying to go after my dreams. Because then what's the point of all this? What's the point of living just for the sake of living? I want to love my life and love my work, but for that work to make a difference in the world. Because even if the work I do has zero impact, at the end of the day, at least I'll be content with knowing that I tried and the effort that I spent was on something that I actually love doing. We can't talk about living for your work without mentioning the 9-to-5. Now, this is a subject that I have battled with on more than one occasion. And unfortunately, it somehow became trendy to criticize and make fun of people who work the 9-to-5. I don't know when that became such a popular thing to do, but I think there's a lot of pros and cons when it comes to working a normal day job that you need to consider. So to give you a quick backstory of my experiences, I've worked a lot of different jobs for various companies in the past. Now, just to quickly list them off, I've done retail, customer service, manual labor, sports refereeing. I worked in a warehouse, drove a truck, been in customs, payroll, administration, and I even had my own poker business for a while. So I have an incredible amount of experience in all kinds of different work environments over the past 20 years. Now, there were a lot of aspects of the 9-to-5 that I did enjoy, specifically having a stable, consistent income, having vacation days, a pension, and benefits, it kind of gives you this sense of financial security, which entrepreneurship doesn't have. However, there are some things that people tend to leave out of the equation. The first is the actual time you work, and in no way, shape, or form is it only 8 hours. When people say that they work a 9 to 5, it's actually more like an 8 to 6, because you need to factor in the commuting time to get to work, the 30 or 60-minute lunch break you have in the middle, and the commuting time to get home. Of course, this can be completely different depending on how close you live to your job, or if you're lucky enough to work from home. But for me, there are no options for me to work from home, so I'm stuck commuting a total of about 50 to 60 minutes each day, Monday to Friday, and that can be a lot of time over the course of an entire year. I think overall the commuting time doesn't really bother me too much, but what really bothers me about the 9 to 5 is the fact that you are essentially putting hours in towards someone else's dream instead of your own. The same concept applies to your freedom. I don't care what anyone says about how good their job is. If you have a boss that can tell you what time you have to start, when you can take your lunch, what days you're allowed to take vacation, or what benefits that you get, then you're never truly free. And that is the stone cold truth about the 9 to 5. Are you willing to sacrifice your freedom for the financial security and comfort of a day job? I think for the majority of people, this is a fairly easy decision to make, as most people will always choose the path of least resistance and take the comfortable, safe option of a 9 to 5, which I'm not saying is the wrong choice. But if you are like me and you don't want to give up your freedom and you want to work towards your own dreams, then the path of the entrepreneur can be a very lonely and difficult road, which is full of risks and unknowns. The best advice I can give you is that you need to accept the fact that you will face many obstacles and failures along the way. Whatever goal or dream you are pursuing, it will almost certainly fail the first time around. And you need to be aware of that, as with most things in life, they hardly ever work out on the first try. One nice thing about the 9 to 5 is that by having a consistent and stable income, that can really help you out with getting a mortgage and jumping into home ownership. Now, before I go any further, I just want to say I have zero experience when it comes to real estate or personal finance. So take this section with as much skepticism as you can. I'm just going to share my experiences and what I think about owning a home. When I was brought up, I was always given the advice that buying a house is always smarter financially than renting an apartment, because renting means you're just throwing your money away, and by owning a house, you're building equity. Over time, my opinion on this subject has changed, and I feel like both owning and renting are viable options. Now, this will depend entirely on your living situation. There are just so many factors that need to go into this decision, and nobody can tell you what is right or wrong for you. The most obvious question would be, do you have kids? Because if you do, then maybe you need to live close to a school or a daycare center. And what if you just work from home? Then maybe you don't need such a big space. Or if you are someone that enjoys traveling a lot, you don't like to live in the same city, for more than 1 or 2 years, then that way you can kind of move around. There are just so many variables at play here that I don't know how anyone can claim that owning is better than renting, or vice versa. Currently, I do own a house with my wife, and we have a mortgage that will probably end in like 25 years from now or something. So I have gone down the path of home ownership, but that doesn't mean I believe it's the best option. There have been so many nuances, pains, and hidden costs that comes with owning a house that I never knew about. Like, for example, last summer we had a week of crazy winds and it completely destroyed the fence in our backyard. Okay, so how do you fix that? Like, I have no idea how to fix a fence or how to re-drill the posts in the ground. And the ongoing maintenance doesn't end with just the fence. We've had our air conditioner die, we needed a new fridge, a new dishwasher, patio stones for the backyard. At some point, I'm probably going to need the driveway paved. So there are just all these extra costs and problems that will consume a lot of your time. Renting, on the other hand, you just do what? Call the landlord when something breaks? So there are always pros and cons with every decision that you make. My reasoning for going into home ownership was very specific. My wife and I wanted to own a home that was big enough to raise our family in. And I hope to one day turn this whole YouTube channel and my podcast into some kind of business. And I want to create a giant home studio in the basement, hopefully. This is a topic that I will stand behind 100% until the day I die. Now, I can't stress enough how important your health and fitness is when compared to all these other things that I'm ranting about. Sadly, this is something like videography, which I never had a passion for in my teens, and I only became dedicated to later in my 20s. By now, everyone knows how important it is to get daily exercise and eat a well-balanced diet. And I'm beginning to feel like a broken record for saying this over and over and over again in like all my videos, but when I finally started to work out and eat healthy, I gained this incredible revitalization of my energy levels. It made me feel so much more productive as I had this newfound stamina to just get stuff done. This was a huge turning point for me in my life, as I was finally able to overcome my chronic procrastination and do something positive with my life. Another thing that I've learned from working out is that there is an extreme amount of value in overcoming something difficult. And it can be really tough to find the self-motivation to hit the gym and pick up those heavy weights. It is. And I've been in those situations where your mind starts playing tricks on you and it starts to conjure up all these excuses for why you should skip today's workout or why you should work out tomorrow instead. There have also been times where I felt intimidated just being at the gym, especially when you're first starting out and you have no idea what to do or what the proper gym etiquette is. And it almost feels like everyone is watching you. But in reality, the majority of the people there are only looking at themselves. It took me a while to piece all these ideas and things together, but whenever I was consistently hitting the gym, my diet always somehow seemed to improve as well. This might be a psychological thing, I don't really know, but there were times where it felt like if I'm spending all this time and energy at the gym, then am I really going to go and buy McDonald's on the way home and then eat back all those calories I just burned? Of course not. That would defeat the whole purpose of working out. Productivity has always felt like a human characteristic that I never had. And I always considered myself a naturally lazy person that enjoyed procrastinating my time away by watching TV and playing video games. All of that started to change when I slowly started down this path of self-development. It was like this linear growth where going to the gym made me feel better about myself, which in turn caused me to eat healthier. By eating healthier, it gave me more energy, and by having more energy, I was able to get more things done, which in turn made me more productive. I believe that everyone in this world can overcome procrastination and become productivity masters. The problem is just finding the right habits to get you there. Maybe you are a person that can benefit greatly from visualization or making a dream board or using to-do lists. Whatever that thing is that can help you out. The goal should be finding and creating a system that works the best for you and staying consistent with it long term. I know a lot of people say things like, you need to take massive action in order to become more productive and change your life. But for me, I find that those small consistent wins is what really makes a difference in the end. The best way I can articulate this is, whenever people want to lose weight, for example, they immediately have this mentality where they're just all in. They're going to go to the gym 7 days a week, they're going to eat chicken, rice, and broccoli every day, they're going to eat all their supplements and buy the most expensive protein powder. And for some people, like that can work, but unfortunately, motivation is fleeting. And a lot of those same people give up on their fitness goals just a month later. My strategy for productivity, and anything in life really, is to play the long game. Find ways to incorporate those small consistent actions into your life, rather than the massive ones. Because it's the small consistent actions that you do day in and day out, which will lead you to positive habit change down the road. Of course, like all things in life, this is not set in stone. What works for me might not work for you, but I can't stress enough the importance of consistency. Just showing up every day can make a huge difference in your life. The last piece of advice that I want to give you is that the world is always and will always be changing. One of the biggest mistakes that I've made in my life is thinking that I've figured everything out. There once was a time where I thought that I knew exactly what I was going to do with my life. I kind of just had everything mapped out in my mind. I was going to go to university, get my degree, and then get some type of comfy computer programming job in some office. And then all my problems would be solved. And that couldn't be any more further from the truth. When I was younger, I used to love computer programming, video games, watching TV, and I hated anything that had to do with the arts or self-expression. But now, I've become the complete opposite. I love writing, public speaking, cameras, and anything that has to do with creativity, which are all things that I despised when I was in school. The lesson to be learned here is that never be naive enough to think that you have it all figured out, because you don't. Just take a look at our world now compared to even just 10 years ago. We have YouTube and streaming, which is taking over cable television. We listen to podcasts instead of radio. There's even self-driving autonomous electric cars on the road. And there's things like Bitcoin, which have changed the way we view currency and money. Who knows what the future has in store for us, which is exactly why you need to be willing to change and always adapt. Now, as for myself, I've decided that I'm going to pursue as many forms of content creation as I can. I don't want to limit myself to just YouTube, even though YouTube is by far my favorite platform. But just like my beliefs of adaptation, I think it's very important to always challenge yourself and put yourself in uncomfortable situations, which is why I started a podcast a few months ago. I wanted to create something that would put me completely out of my comfort zone and challenge me in a way that YouTube doesn't. Because to be perfectly honest, this whole YouTube video creation thing, it lets you hide your mistakes behind your video editing software. Whenever you misspeak, say something stupid, or fumble your words, you can just edit all that out in post. And in some ways, the content you're releasing can be a little bit disingenuous. A podcast, on the other hand, is completely raw. You hear the person for who they really are. Now, I don't edit my podcast or take anything out, so the conversations that I have are just one giant free-flowing file. And I feel like there's something refreshing about that. Moving forward, I am going to continue trying new things, and one of them is going to be Twitch streaming. I'll leave a link somewhere on my channel's main page if you want to check it out. And this may or may not be a future topic for a video coming out soon, but we'll have to see how it turns out. I know this ended up being a super rambly video, and it probably isn't going to perform well, but I don't really care about that. I've always wanted to put something together that was a combination of all these weird self-development skills that I work on. And hopefully if you made it to this point and you're still watching, you gained something of value from my perspective. If you did, let me know in the comments section down below. And I think that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys next time, and thanks for watching.